Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to be giving you my pros and cons for camcorders and DSLRs. So first of all, I view camcorders as kind of an easy device that the average person can buy and record movies at home. And it is easy to use, and they don't have to constantly change settings. Now, although that is the most common use case, that doesn't mean you can't use these camcorders for recording online video. You don't have to worry about the settings, and whatever you see on the screen is what you get. In many cases, you will still have the option to add external microphones through a microphone jack, and this Canon HF M40 has a shoe mount that can be used with an adapter, and you can attach microphones such as the Rode VideoMic Pro. Now this is all great, but if you have a little more time and knowledge, you are going to be frustrated with the lack of ability for manual adjustments. Then again, this also means if you hand the camera to somebody else, all they need to do is press record, and as long as they don't mess up the framing, you should be good to go. Now that these modern camcorders use memory cards instead of tapes, you won't have to worry about accidentally recording over your footage by mistake. In addition, the price is almost always cheaper than a DSLR. So now moving on to the DSLR side of things. That stands for Digital Single Lens Reflex. Now it doesn't really matter what the heck that means, but you should know that these cameras are originally made for taking photos. Now a few years ago, Canon came out with their 5D Mark II, and that allowed filmmakers a cheap option for making films. This is great because it gives you pretty much all the manual adjustments, and you get the creativity of interchangeable lenses at a lower cost than an interchangeable lens camcorder. Now this isn't to say that they're cheap, although you can get some models as low as $500, they aren't going to be the best for shooting video. A bad example, this Canon T1i has pretty much no manual adjustments, no audio inputs, and only records in 1080p at 20 frames per second. You can tell that the video mode was kind of an afterthought just to keep up with the competition. This Canon T4i, on the other hand, records at the normal 30 frames per second at the full 1080p resolution. It has all the manual adjustments and has an audio input. It also has support for this stepper motor STM lenses, allowing autofocus during video. Now this doesn't mean that it'll work quite as good as a camcorder, and you will only get this functionality with select lenses, but in most cases it is better than having no autofocus at all, and if you're using an STM lens, manual focus also won't make as much noise. With DSLRs, you also need to keep in mind that you may have a limit on how long you can record a movie for. The first is artificial limit on capture time. This is when you put a gigantic card in your camera and you still read that you can only record 29 minutes and 59 seconds in a single clip. The second thing you will run into is the FAT32 file system. If your card is formatted in this file system, you cannot store files larger than 4 gigabytes. Now this limitation shouldn't be that bad, assuming your camera can stop the current file and begin a new one. The third thing you will run into is sensor overheat. This is when you're recording for a long time and you're leaving the sensor open. Now keep in mind that these cameras are made to take pictures and only have the shutter open for fractions of a second. Anyway, you should look online to research how long the camera can go before it reaches this limit. So going back to the idea of interchangeable lenses, this gives you more flexibility later down the line when you're changing out lenses and you want to buy a new lens and stuff like that. For example, this 50mm lens gives you excellent low light performance, and it also has an extremely shallow depth of field. This means you get blurry backgrounds and stuff like that. This lens also has what's known as a fixed focal length, which means in order to zoom in and out, you're basically going to have to move closer and further away from your subject. Also, if you're shooting handheld, this lens doesn't have any stabilization, which shouldn't matter much for photos, but when you're shooting video, you're definitely going to see the movement, and it's going to be kind of hard to watch. Now keep in mind that you do get to pick your lens, so you could always opt for one that has image stabilization, but that might sacrifice something else, and if you're not sacrificing anything else, what you're going to be sacrificing is price, because some of these premium image stabilization lenses are going to cost over $1,000, so just keep that in mind. Well, that's about it. So to be honest, I can't really decide between DSLRs and camcorders. DSLRs work great for creative type stuff where it isn't a big deal if you have to reshoot because you messed up the camera work. If you're recording some kind of live event though, you're going to want to go for a camcorder because that's going to make sure that nothing goes wrong, and it's not going to be quite as fancy or artistic, but at least you're going to get the shots that you need, and it's really kind of a practicality over artistic thing. So you're basically going to be best off having both, and I know you're watching this video to kind of decide between the two, but it's really up to you to make that decision. So thanks for watching, feel free to leave your opinion in the comments, and I'll see you again soon with another video.